What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Time Killers podcast. My name is Neil Rivera, and I'm once again joined by Mr. Wesley Rivera. What's going on, Wes?
I can't sleep anymore. I haven't slept in 3 days. I can't sleep.
Do you want to go into why? Like, do you want to just have like quick therapy session, or how's that going?
I can't sleep. I'm so excited about Gamescom!
I'm also excited about Gamescom. Matthew, are you also excited to kill time talking about Gamescom?
I am super excited to talk about Gamescom.
I realized when I kicked it to Wesley, I did not say I'm killing time with Wesley. I said that I was joined by Wesley, and I had to correct that mistake on the second go around. No, it's okay. We're still figuring it out, but I still feel like we're getting into the flow of show. I feel like things are going well. We're grooving. We're moving. But yeah, we got plenty of stuff to talk about, guys. We are in the middle of Gamescom, which is happening right now, out all the way in Cologne, Germany. We've already had opening night live, which is Jeff Keighley's sort of like big announcement trailer show. So there's plenty to discuss there. We're also going to like sort of go into like our overall thoughts on the show and kind of call out some of the big like sort of like personal standouts for us. So yeah, let's just jump right into it, guys. For me, like the I think a good place to start is like how it ended here with Black Myth Zhongkui. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's essentially the sequel to Black Myth Wukong, and it appears as though they're just gonna stay within the realm of Chinese mythology. Matthew, what did you think of the trailer? What did you think of this as the closer? Yeah.
I thought it was a pretty effective trailer. I was surprised to see, a new game from the studio. Obviously, it's probably still several at least years away, but to have something, a trailer like this to announce it, I think was pretty impressive. Especially, at this point, we've forgotten about how long Wukong was in development. So either they figured some things out and are going to be able to deliver this one a lot quicker, or it'll be a long, long time before we see this game. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a really effective trailer.
Yeah, that was my my initial reaction to it. Was like, huh, really already? Like that's like, was not expecting a quick turnaround. I'm trying to find the original sort of like announcement trailer just to see how far it was, or how long ago, or how long before it released.
For Wukong?
Yeah, it looks like 5 years ago. I don't know. I could be wrong there, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems about right in terms of, like, okay, it's announced. It's probably going to, come out a year or two from now. So that seems believable. And I mean, yeah, like I'm super stoked for it. I ended up loving Black Myth Wukong by the end of my time with it. Wesley, what stood out to you from, the opening night live portion of the show, or the Gamescom?
Are we talking about Jungwei still, or?
I mean, if you want to talk about, if you've got anything that you want to talk about, or if there's anything else from the show itself that you wanted to bring up, whatever your heart tells you.
Well, speaking on Jungwei, because I once again, I do need to go back and finish Black Myth Wukong. But so, like you were saying, the fact that the game only came out, last year, year before, and we're already seeing a semi-sequel?
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious about the turnaround rate for that. Is it something that's going to be coming soon? Is it something that's going to be another 4 or 5 years? But I'm also curious, are we just getting, not in a bad way, but is this just going to be another Souls game, or are they going to do a different style of game for this this new title?
I would wager, if it's this quick of a turnaround, that it's probably going to be building off of the bones of Black Myth Wukong and like that combat system and I think there's a lot that they could sort of explore and flesh out with both the progression and some of the level design. Like towards the end of that game, there's a lot of like ideas that you can tell that they wanted to do more with. So I imagine this is kind of just them, building on those ideas a little bit more. But yeah, no, I mean,
Wesley,
I'm so for it.
Real quick, Wesley, you have some experience or at least some knowledge of this mythology, which I imagine most people, Wukong is somewhat known in the West, but this other one, Zhang Kui, I'm sure I'm getting that wrong, but
no,
you have
it's
some knowledge of that.
It's Zhong Wei. And if I was going to hook you guys on this mythos, I would just say that Todd McFarlane used this premise to create Spawn. So it's essentially a guy who becomes like the king of ghosts, and he sort of like shepherds spirits and kind of manages the ones who act out, which is what I imagine this game is going to be about.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
With that context, it seems like it definitely seems like the same style of game as as Wukong, and that you're mostly going to be fighting. You're going to be fighting some big bad like demons, ghosts, demons, creatures, ghosts, probably
spirits. It's going to be. I like Sun Wukong a lot more if we're talking about our Chinese Taoist deities, but no, I am excited for this one. Neil, going back to you, talking about highlights for Gamescom, I gotta go with this new Lego Batman game.
Yeah,
100%.
I was like, it was one of those things that like when the trailer, like when they like as the trailer progressed, it just kept getting better and better and better, and I was like, oh, okay, like they're doing another Lego Batman game, which like of course. And then like they're like, oh wait, these are from the movies. Oh wait, these are like spoofing the movies. Oh wait, these are spoofing like all of the movies, like, and all of the the even the patents in Batman. And like this is everything. And and then oh my god, it's open world and like has the Arkham combat, and like that immediately shot up the list of like most anticipated for 2026.
Not to diss the Gotham Knight game in any way, shape, or form, but looking at everything they've shown us so far, it already looks like a better Arkham game somehow. And I'm very excited for this. Do you guys happen to follow James Gunn on social media by any chance?
I mean, I see the occasional tweet or posts wherever, but like not like I'm not like hanging by every thread.
So he was actually blowing this game up yesterday.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. He's the DC like guru guy.
Well, yeah. So I'm making a really out of pocket prediction here that is in no way, shape, or form happening, because he's been very tight-lipped on the future of Batman and everything. I mean, I know we're getting a movie. I think we're gonna get some kind of first look at it through this game, and I'm just calling that a prediction that I, in no way, shape, or form, don't see happening. But if it does, then you heard it here first, everyone.
That's a crazy prediction. I don't think it's going to happen. Before we move on, I did want to say, like, going back to Black Myth, Zhang Wei, and like Wesley, your sort of fascination with the like Chinese mythology. Like I'll say one of my favorite parts of like experiencing Black Myth Wukong was sort of like just like going out and like learning about the actual legend of Journey to the West, and then Sun Wukong, and then like this was all during like the big sort of like during the TikTok ban, and like when everyone was sort of migrating over to Red Note for a little bit, so like to actually hear it from like Chinese people, like from their own perspective and like with their own lived experience, was like really cool, and like made like made that game sort of stand out more than any other game that came out. I also forgot that game came out just last year, so it's even more impressive that the turnaround was this quick. But yeah, I just wanted to call that out before we moved on. But yeah, no, I mean, I think, the beyond that, I think the other big sort of AAA, I mean, there was a couple, you had Resident Evil, you had World of Warcraft, showing off their cinematics, but I think like sort of the other big AAA like game that got a deep dive was this Black Ops 7 with the campaign reveal. Matthew, what did you think of this? Did you see, like, I guess what I'll preface this by saying I saw a little bit of like extra, like, interview, like on the show floor. What did you think of, like, I guess sort of the approach to the campaign overall?
I think I didn't watch any of the extra interviews. I read some impressions, I guess, or just some more details that they revealed kind of off camera. And I think, I mean, so I liked Black Ops 6 last year. I didn't finish the campaign, but it was good. It was the first Call of Duty campaign that I'd played in, I think since they rebooted Modern Warfare back in, I don't know, 2019 or whenever that was.
I think so.
And yeah, I think that's right. But yeah, and it was a really fun time. Like, they had kind of a hub structure where you were at a safe house and you'd go out on these different missions. And I read up on the Black Ops convoluted storyline that I'd missed. So I really had a good time with it for what I played. And I actually may go back and finish it now that 7 is coming out. But I think this shift to a near future, like, or even like, sci-fi, dare I say, futuristic kind of aesthetic to some of the enemies and themes that the story is tackling, combined with the traditional sort of like psychological Black Ops, themes and story. It worked for me. And I think, Neil, I told you this when we were kind of live texting about the opening night live, is this is sort of seems a bit like what I hoped Mind's Eye would be, which is kind of like a campaign about, like paramilitary, like, privatized, military, like corporations in the near future with sort of a sci-fi twist. So that's definitely in my wheelhouse. And it looks like Call of Duty Black Ops 7 unexpectedly is going to deliver that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like I've skipped out on the Black Ops like series as a whole, so like I've haven't been super interested in this one, especially like you mentioned the convoluted story. Like, I feel like that's a huge barrier for me with this one, where I'm just like, do I really want to go through all 6 of these previous games to understand what's going on? Probably not. But
well, I remember at least one of them had no campaign. So
that's right.
And one of them, one of them was
played most recently. It was Black Ops 4, right?
I think it might have been 4. Yeah,
yeah, that was the one I played.
There's really only like 2 that had like a relevant storyline to the plot line in 6, if I recall correctly.
Well, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. No, but the one thing I think that did sort of sell me on the game sort of after the fact is, like, in these developer interviews that they're doing, is like they really hammered home that this is a 1 to 4 player experience. Like it is designed to be scalable to play with just yourself, you and a buddy, or up to 4 players. Like it really seems like the squad is like integral to like both the story and the gameplay, obviously. And then the other thing that sort of like got me leaning towards this more so than like Battlefield is sort of the shared XP system that they're introducing here, which is like you can play zombies and like you're unlocking different unlocks that you can then use in competitive multiplayer, and then so on and so forth. And not that I envision myself like getting too deep into it, but like as somebody who gets frustrated with competitive multiplayer in Call of Duty, it's good to sort of like play zombies and cool off, and like it's nice to know that you're still getting rewarded for that. So those 2 things I think really sort of got me intrigued in Black Ops 7 more so than I was going into it. Wesley, is there any chance in hell that you download and play more than 30 minutes of this thing?
I will, because I would be willing to, because they done got Milo Venti. Please, I do
Ventimiglia?
Yeah, Ventimiglia.
Ventimiglia, who was one of the stars of the hit TV series Heroes. Emphasis
save the cheerleader, save the world.
Save the cheerleader, save the world. Zachary Quinto cutting people's heads off and stuff. It's great.
And it also looked like the villain, or at least they were framing her as a villain, is Kiernan Shipka, who, from Mad Men, if you watched that, and also more recently from the Sabrina the Teenage Witch reboot.
I knew I recognized that name, and Wesley and I also realized that Michael Rooker was in the campaign trailer as well, of Yondu fame and Walking Dead fame as well.
Yes, so yeah, they at least have a cast to back up whatever they're doing.
I mean, yeah, they got the money to spend. It's going to look great. It's going to play great. Like, I'm interested to dip my toes into it and see. I don't think I'm going to get hooked into Call of Duty again, but might be worth checking out. It definitely seems like both the military shooter franchises are making a big push this year between that and Battlefield. But moving on, I'd be remiss if we didn't at least touch on the game that everyone's been waiting for, which is Hollow Knight Silksong, which as of the time that we are recording this officially has a release date. It's September 5th. It's only a couple of weeks from now. We got an extended gameplay trailer at Opening Night Live, and then Team Cherry had a special announcement today and released the release date. Did either of you guys play Hollow Knight? What did you guys think of it?
I didn't play any of it. I saw like some hands-on previews back when it first released, and I was just like, this isn't for me. I was talking about a 2D Metroidvania, Souls-like. Sounds really cool on paper, but Souls-likes already have a really hard time getting their hooks into me. So for everyone who enjoyed Hollow Knight and who is going to enjoy Silksong, more power to you.
Yeah, I would not classify it as any Souls adjacent. I think it was just kind of a pure Metroidvania. In my opinion, it was maybe more challenging than some games in that genre. But from what I recall, I mean, I didn't come anywhere close to finishing it, and it's been many years since I played what I did, so I could be misremembering some things. But I didn't really get the hype for it. I think some people, I don't know. I guess it was just a really, within the people who like Metroidvanias, of which I'm not really one of those people. I'll if one is really good or doing something new, last year's Prince of Persia game, I'll play that. But it didn't hook me. I'm glad Silksong exists. The art style is really cool. I can say that. But I don't envision myself playing this.
Yeah, sorry, Silksong really fans.
If we're talking Metroidvania, does Super Meat Boy count as a Metroidvania?
No, that one's more like a speed running. That one's like a Hotline Miami, because it's like you get hit once and you die and you respawn immediately.
Like Celeste, it's a platformer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was about to be like, the only Metroidvania I was remotely interested in was Super Meat Boy, but no, never mind.
I mean, the closest comparison I've always had for it in my mind is the Ori series, where they're these just really aesthetically pleasing Metroidvanias that aren't necessarily reinventing the wheel in terms of the game design or whatever. I do think in the case of Hollow Knight, it does have sort of that more hard, difficult, more Souls quote unquote combat. But I don't play and like, oh my God, this changes the game. Like, and granted, like I only got like a boss or two in. So like there very well could be stuff at the end of the game that really is sort of like what makes the sickos sicko for it. But yeah, no, I mean, I think, like I am excited that the game is here. Like I think in an era where, I saw, Maddie Torson, the speaking of Celeste, sort of commenting on like, giving their perspective and just saying like, cause they recently canceled their game, and just to, see like that, like, like, I don't know, them like sort of just having the ability to persevere and just sort of make the game at their own pace. Like it seems like Jason Schreier also reported that it's been in development for 7 years. Like it hasn't really gone through any sort of like significant crunch or like issues in the development. Like they've just really honed in and made the game that they wanted to make. So I'm excited to, I'm excited for the people who have been excited for it, and I'm excited to check it out because it is, good quality game, and like, I gotta give credit where credit's due.
I do think what you just mentioned about like the kind of behind the scenes and like peek behind the curtain that they finally gave today, where they say like, yeah, no, there was no drama. Like we just are bad at kind of estimating how long things take. We were actually having so much fun making the game. We had to like stop making stuff for it because we would have just keep developing it forever because we just were having so much fun doing it. That's like something that you just don't hear about for games that are like long in development like this. So that I think it should be really exciting to hear for anybody who was anticipating this. And yeah, I mean, I may check it out if the reviews are rave reviews, and I may download it and check it out on an airplane ride or something.
If the team is talking about it in this way, like talking about how much fun they collectively had making it, if you have the fans this collectively excited, like I think it's kind of like destined to be a hit. And yeah, I mean, I think that's what you want from, as a fan of any game, is to just hear the developers of the game just being like, yeah, we were just having a blast making it. Like we didn't want to release it, but I guess we should. Yeah, I mean, best of luck to Team Cherry and Silksong. I know it's going to crush it. Game of the year is getting spicy this year, y'all. Like and like in the back of my mind, I keep thinking like, what if Hades 2 drops a 1.0 this year? Like Game of the year is going to be really intriguing this year, and that's not even getting into things like Ghost of Yotei and like other stuff that we saw throughout the show. Speaking of which, guys, let's do a quick pivot. What did you guys think stood out? Matthew, let's start with you. What was like a personal standout for you in the opening night live presentation?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one for me was the new Zaum game of Disco Elysium fame, Zero Parades, which I don't know what that means exactly or why it's named that. But I think the trailer that we got for that was extremely striking, mixed with like the few flashes of gameplay that show that it's going to be basically the same top-down sort of style as Disco Elysium is, has me very excited for that.
Yeah, that setting and like the art style and like all of that, like you said, it was very striking, very, I mean, like you could tell, like it's just like, I mean, like the thing I would give Disco Elysium, even though I never played it or like sort of got into it, was that like the art is very striking. And I know that this is a completely new team, or at least mostly new team. Can you give me like a quick, like, cliff notes on what happened at the studio?
We could fill this entire podcast and then some with what happened there. But suffice to say that the core creatives who were behind Disco Elysium were either fired or left the studio on bad terms. Mm-hmm. And there are now the key figures have founded new studios, and there's sort of spiritual successors to Disco Elysium that are being created elsewhere. But this is the one that for the people who did remain at the studio, of which I think some of the key artists were like maybe the most notable figures, which is what's giving it that similar look. They did remain. But from what I understand, the actual, creative writers behind it are not the primary people who did Disco Elysium.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I think it's good to have that context too, because I think the art was something that I think, you know, sort of carried over in terms of like, you know, it's like, you know, a Kojima using Shinkawa, right? Like I think that's his name, Yoji Shinkawa.
Yes.
Where it's just like you just recognize it immediately. And yeah, so I mean, I think that definitely caught my eye. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the writing does, and looks like I'm sure it'll be heavily scrutinized. You know, given the tumultuous history of Zaum.
I mean, to be clear, I think Disco Elysium was a great game. I think it's slightly overrated. I think it leaned a little bit too hard on some tropes. But I do think it was very solid overall. One thing that is different about this one, about Zero Parades, that makes me much more interested in it is that it's featuring a female protagonist. The male protagonist in the first game was just sort of he was stylized in an interesting way where you got to see his inner thoughts and stuff that made those were the sort of mechanics that made the game unique. But him as a character, as just kind of like a sad sack who's like sad that his wife divorced him, like really played into some like very overused stereotypes without really interrogating that, in my opinion. So I do think that elements of that were slightly overrated, but yeah, I think they seem to be
the core of our protagonist in Disco Elysium. I do feel like I agree with you, but I think they just leaned on the fact of like, the character you're playing as is to the bone just kind of a fucking loser, and I think they own that. And I mean, using that as sort of like a gameplay mechanic with his inner thoughts and how you interact with the world and how the world sort of interacts with you, I think it's good, and I hope that they kind of lean on that with this one. But if I could circle back, because I love how we talked about Hideo Kojima, because it seems like the studio is kind of doing, it would be like Konami doing Metal Gear Solid without Hideo Kojima, is what this game feels like.
Yeah, I mean that was in that case specifically, it was Metal Gear Survive, so that doesn't bode well for this if you're going to use that analogy.
Oh god, I forgot about that.
It's interesting that you guys bring up Kojima here, because tell me that in this description does not sound like it was something that Kojima would make. This is from Zero Parades, the description on the Steam page currently. It says, you'll go up against international bankers, foreign techno-fascists, psychic doppelgangers, a paranoid TV presenter, a man with a box for a heart, and dozens more.
Oh man.
Everyone you meet has their own agendas, beliefs, and secrets for you to uncover. I mean, that's like you could be describing a Kojima game.
Is that not Guns of the Patriots right there?
Right. You know, so
that's like his name, a man with a box for the heart.
Yeah. Box Heart Man.
Box Heart Man.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good segue. Oh no, I'm sorry, Matthew. You were gonna say.
No, that's what I was just those sort of little details make me like I was very skeptical of this studio, whatever they made after losing all the key personnel. But the fact that they seem to kind of it at least seems like they understand what made Disco Elysium appealing, and they're making something new, but in the same sort of vibe as that. So this was the standout trailer of the show for me.
I'm going to be a little hesitant too, because I'm worried that they took what worked for Disco Elysium and they're just going to blow it out of proportion. I feel like they may veer too far in that direction.
It's a possibility. I mean, you know, you're still dealing with like a detective style investigation. So maybe they end up leading on that in a bad way. I mean, obviously we only got like a 30-second gameplay trailer here to go off of, but you know, I'm more optimistic about it than I was before the trailer, and that's for right now, that's an improvement.
Okay.
Well, speaking of indie games with female protagonists and wacky stories, my standout game from opening night live was Unbeatable, which finally got a release date. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Unbeatable, it is, and I'm reading this directly from their description, is a rhythm adventure game where music is illegal and you do crimes. And so it's sort of stylized like an Edgar Wright movie. So it's like, think Scott Pilgrim, it's very Scott Pilgrim inspired, both in terms of just like the art style and then just like the music and like, so like it is sort of like a rhythm action game. Like there is combat, but there's, like adventure and like, you're moving around in, in these sort of like cities and towns and open spaces. There definitely seems to be like an emotionally compelling story there somewhere. So I think this is kind of just a game that sort of like when you add up the individual pieces, just sort of like the Edgar Wright, Scott Pilgrim influence plus like the rhythm action game, mechanics. I think like, I also think like some of the mini games like remind me a lot of something like Elite Beat Agents, if you guys remember that game on the DS. So I think this has the potential to like really strike a chord with me, haha, pun intended, when it releases in November.
So what's the history here? I understand that this has been long in development, but I honestly don't recall having seen anything for this game before. Do you have an idea of like, are these developers, is it their first game, or have they made something else? What's the backstory here that maybe I'm not familiar with?
Yeah, so the developers are D-Cell Games, and I believe this is their first game. So I did a little bit of digging around, and this was originally launched as a Kickstarter some time ago, and then I think there was sort of this long, as can be and is consistently sort of the case with Kickstarter games, is there's this sort of long period of nothingness. You kind of think, the game isn't going to happen, whatever. They come out with this big sort of re-announcement trailer of like, hey, yeah, we're back, we're coming out. And that's when I sort of discovered the game. That re-announcement trailer was like a year ago. So it's been a sort of, it's been a sort of relatively quick sort of turnaround from the re-announcement. But yeah, it seems like the people who contributed to the Kickstarter have probably been waiting on this for a while. Like they even sort of hinted at it in the trailer where it's like finally, like it like the you could feel the emotion in the trailer and the way they edited it, and just finally putting a release date on it. So I'm excited for the team. It seems like they're really passionate about this, and like you can tell like a lot of love and like care has gone into this. So I think I'm the target audience, and I think it's going to resonate with me. So I'm super excited to play it when it drops.
Yeah, it looks cool. I mean, the Scott Pilgrim is the first thing that jumps into my mind too. It's got a kind of like, almost a Saturday morning cartoon style, animation style to some of the movement. And yeah,
it's got like that CRT
gameplay seems to be interesting.
The CRT TV,
yeah, very lo-fi.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks nice. Like, yeah, it's definitely got a striking visual style. And the gameplay, like where you're almost playing like, looks like Guitar Hero kind of notes.
I'm a sucker for
with like
for games that use the sort of like rhythm as a combat mechanism, and it seems like a lot of games are starting to explore that now.
Yeah, it feels like Scott Pilgrim and Elite Beat Agents had a baby.
Yeah, this looks good. Like I said, it wasn't on my radar, but definitely one that I'll be keeping an eye on as it gets to release.
Unbeatable, y'all. It's coming out on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. Can't wait to check it out. But we are going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then when we come back, we are going to talk about Mafia, The Old Country, and Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. Matthew, tell us about Mafia, the old country. Make us an offer that we can't refuse. So this is obviously the newest from 2K Games. It's sort of the follow-up, if you will, to Mafia 3, which was sort of got like a lukewarm reception, tried the whole open world thing. So this is like a return to sort of like the more like linear narrative focus. It's like a smaller experience. It's $50. And Matthew, you played it and beat it. So why don't you tell us what you thought about it?
Sure. Yeah, it's exactly right. So, I mean, Mafia 1 and 2 were they were open world, but not really open world, kind of like what they call faux open world, like FAUX. In that there is a open world, but it doesn't have any of these systems or side content that you usually associate with an open world game. Then, with Mafia 3, they finally decided to do the big open world thing and make it, double the length and add all the side content. And it turns out that people didn't really want that. I think it was well enough received, but not for the amount of money that it took for them to develop it. So conveniently, the interests of their fan base and the economic realities of making a large AAA game in 2025 kind of converged in a way that led them to go back to the shorter, more focused, narrow, sort of open world games that the earlier series or the other earlier entries in the series had, and it worked out. To put it simply, I think it was a great decision, and Mafia: The Old Country is it's fantastic. It feels like a throwback, but it has spectacular visuals. It's using Unreal Engine 5 and doing some really nice lighting and ray tracing and this beautiful Sicily countryside. I ultimately really enjoyed it. So my history with the series is I didn't play the original one until it was remastered a few years ago. I did play the Mafia 2 when it released in like 2009 or 2010 and loved it. And this gives me the same feeling as Mafia 2. Really strong narrative, strong characters, strong acting. The performances by the lead, the whole cast really are excellent. And it really puts you in the like you feel like you're playing a classic mob film.
That's awesome. I mean, as someone who that's sort of my experience with the franchise as well, is that I played and really enjoyed 2, never played 1, and then dabbled in 3 and was like, this isn't the same as what I remembered. And so, like, to hear you sort of like gush about it from somebody who also enjoyed 2, like, that gives me even more incentive, or more like it makes me want to go play it more. You kind of mentioned that this one is a little bit narrower. I guess in what ways would you say it compares to Mafia 2 in terms of like the open world stuff?
I think so. This, the time is different here. This is further in the past, so there are not as many just roads in general. I don't know how big the map is compared to Mafia 2, but I do, from what I recall. Obviously it's been a long time since Mafia 2 came out, but I recall it feeling very much open world. Like there's a lot of roads you can drive on, different paths, like different roads. Like you can take different routes to the same location. This doesn't really have that, and not due to a fault of the design, just simply because there's a lot of open fields, a lot of pastures that you could try to drive through or ride through on a horse. That's the other thing, is that a lot of the transportation in this game is not via car; it's via horse. And so, if you're following a road, there is probably only going to be like one way to get to where you're going. So it doesn't feel as open and expansive, but in a way that makes sense for what they're doing.
Matthew, to sort of make the listeners a bit more comfortable with what you said, just for context, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that is because this is sort of like an origin story. Like this is like an early 1900s setting. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the game opens in 1904, I believe, and so it's not directly tied to the events of the other games. If people have played these, the Mafia series, they all have like elements that reference each other, but it's not directly following the same crime family or actual family or anything like that.
Oh, I was under the impression that like this game was going to be like an origin story for the Mafia.
It's I wouldn't call it that, because you are not the only Mafia, like you're not the only crime family here. Like it does have some of the typical like Mafia, like beefing with other families aspect to it. So it's not like you guys have invented something, but there is an element of like, hey, like the Mafia thing is kind of new. They don't even refer to it as like our thing, like they hint at it. And in like newspaper clippings and stuff, you see kind of how the government and law enforcement are sort of reacting to the rise of these organized crime families in a way that they don't really have a way of dealing with well. Which brings me to a gameplay thing here, which is there's really no law enforcement in this game. You're not in a city. Wow. This isn't, because I think even Mafia 2 did have law enforcement where you could get arrested. This doesn't have any of that. You're out there, if you're being chased or if you're fighting somebody, it's another crime family, which was an interesting twist. It gave it a more laid back feel, but in a way that worked. I mean, again, these are not open world games. This is not Grand Theft Auto. You're not going to go out there and like try to try and get a 5-star rating and then fight off tanks and helicopters as long as you can. Like this has never been that series. It really leans in telling a strong narrative, and it does that well.
And I think that's the strength of the Mafia games because, like you guys, I have played 2. I love 2. And I dabbled into the remaster of the first one, but there's something about the linear aspect of Mafia that my ADHD adult brain never really hooked into. Mafia 3 does not get enough love, and I love the story, I love the free roaming aspect, and I understand that it just wasn't the thing for the Mafia crowd. But what they've lacked in exploration and side content, they've always made up for in strides with their narrative stuff. So I guess what I could ask you is, compared to Mafia 2, is this a stronger narrative, you feel like?
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to say about the narrative here. I think there's so much like Mafia stories out there now, movies, books, games. Like it's very hard to tell a Mafia story that's never been told before. However, I think this goes in some directions that are less common. I mean, if I'm looking back at the story, like the main plot beats, nothing feels like something I've never seen in any medium before. Certainly, the direction it goes towards the end is not one that like I really recall seeing in a game. But it's been done in films and stuff like that. So, but don't let that just because it's been done before doesn't mean that it's arranged and done in an interesting way. I think going back to the original Mafia, which I went back to play some of the definitive edition earlier this year. The pacing is very fast. You're cutting in between missions, and like you're so quickly does the story ramp from you like getting into the Mafia to then you're just like you're the Don's right hand man, and you're doing on solo missions to assassinate people, right? Like the escalation is very quick in a way that's not very realistic. One thing that really impressed me about the Old Country is that at the start of this game, you start off, you're not a member of the family. You don't even like shoot a gun until I want to say at least 2 hours into this game.
Wow.
Like it is a real slow burn opening that
something for you Red Dead Redemption
puts you into the character's shoe. Yeah, I mean, it puts you in the character's shoes. It wants you to learn about who you're playing as, what their motives are, where they come from, and get to know the people that you're working with before you go out and start killing people. Now, obviously, like it does eventually escalate into where you're getting into some pretty big shootouts and that sort of thing. But like, I think that's really indicative that of what they're going for here, and like. It just feels more natural in a way that really sucks you into the story in a way that like the original game didn't, because of how unrealistic it was that you were just so quickly rising up the ranks.
Yeah.
So shooting, driving, running around, like does the game feel good to play? Is there any sort of like, underlying progression systems, anything worth calling out there? Or is it just kind of like
So there's really
stuff?
Yeah, it's they did not try to do anything new in any element of the gameplay, but like full stop. They did not attempt to innovate on the gameplay level. You've got stealth, you've got your shootouts, and you've got your driving. All three of those things are extremely competent, but it's all done in a way that you have absolutely seen before, and you probably won't be impressed by. I mean, I did have fun playing it because I just, it was kind of a laid back thing. Like it wasn't white knuckle, but it was, because the narrative put me in these situations, I was still having fun, in these shootouts because I knew the stakes from a narrative perspective.
I was going to say, it's in service of the narrative, which is very strong.
It is, yes. So, I mean, you don't play this for the gameplay. Like the game, if you've never played a Mafia game before, this is how I would pitch it to somebody or know whether this is for them or not. If your favorite parts of Grand Theft Auto are when you are driving to or from an objective and talking to another character and like learning about them and having the story kind of unfold between your characters as you're driving to and fro. That's my favorite part of Grand Theft Auto, and the Mafia series and Old Country in particular absolutely delivers. Like if you like that sort of thing, this is a must-play game.
That is.
Well, I feel
Mafia: The Old Country, y'all. And that is out. It's out PC, PS5, Xbox. Yes. Yes. Yeah, and that's and it's only $50. So go get it. Go play it. Pivoting to something that is also in the budget range in terms of games, but maybe on the lower side. I've been playing the new Ninja Gaiden game, which is not Ninja Gaiden 4, but Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. This is, oh god, I feel like I should have done this before, but this is the team that did the Blasphemous series. So this is, going back to our previous conversation, this is a 2D side-scrolling Souls-like, Wesley. It's the Game Kitchen is the developers. So they got the Ninja Gaiden license, and yes, just a few months before we get a full fat Ninja Gaiden 4, we are getting a sort of like spiritual successor to like the old 2D side-scrolling Ninja Gaiden games. So the premise of this one is, it's very much a side spin-off story. You are playing as a new character who's training under Ryu Hayabusa, and through the story you come into contact with someone from the Black Spider clan, and so like you come into contact with a dead ninja from the Black Spider clan, and you're able to, like, what that essentially means and translates to is you can use sort of the traditional Ninja Gaiden slashes with the sword, and then you can use the kunai, throwing ranged weapons. And the game sort of plays with it in interesting and unique ways. So there's a power up sort of like strikes, so like certain enemies. Ben Hansen on MinMax described it best, where it's like it feels like Final Smash, where like if you go after this enemy, you kill it a specific way, you get an attack that essentially cuts down any enemy. And so I mean, if it's a 2D side-scrolling Ninja Gaiden game, and I played through it, enjoyed the ever-living hell out of it. It is, I mean, honestly, this game fucking rips, dude.
So you were talking about unique ways that they mess around with the combat. Can you give us a couple of examples that you particularly enjoyed?
Yeah, so I mean, going back to sort of like the power up and like the you know, like sort of like the you know, the one strike kill that you can get, the level design ends up taking a rhythmic feel to it, where they will position enemies that grant you that ability right before like sort of a big, you know, chonky enemy. And so like there's a timing element that becomes apparent, that like, okay, you know, and I think another thing that this game does really, really well is that in terms of handling the difficulty, you know, these games are like notoriously difficult. There's a lot going on in the screen. You know, it's an action platformer. So like you got stuff coming at you, you having to fight, also jump over, you know, obstacles. But I think one thing that it does really, really well is that the checkpointing is very generous, and it's quick to get you right back into it. It almost feels like a Hotline Miami sort of style, where like, oh, I died, I get to do it again. And then eventually it just gets to a point where you memorize the levels, and you can just like, yep, this guy's coming, I can bounce off of him, hit this guy, now I've got my power up, I can, you know, fling my kunai, do whatever. And like you sort of end up stringing together these like dope ass looking combos, and it just feels immensely satisfying to pull off once you've like sort of figure it out.
It sounds like you're describing the early days of like the platforming genre, where it was all about like memorizing enemy patterns, and also it seems like this game is geared more towards having fun than being a difficult process. Am I correct with that?
It's definitely difficult. It's definitely challenging. I would say, I mean, yeah, if you are not a fan of dying repeatedly, like, I mean, I think you mentioned Super Meat Boy before. Like, I think, you know, it something like that, where you will die like upwards, you know, between 50 to 100 times doing a level. You know, if you're not a fan of that, definitely don't play this. But I think, you know, for those of us who do enjoy those kind of games, or do enjoy the sort of like overcoming a challenge, it's very forgiving, in the sense that like it doesn't make you like, you know, live through, you know, go through like the same lines of dialogue repeatedly. You know, like I said before, the checkpointing is very generous. So like, you know, while there are very challenging sequences, you can sort of feel like, okay, I'm getting to the end, I know what to do to get through it, and eventually you can persevere. So yeah, it's definitely not without its challenges, but it's not, I would say it's definitely not as difficult as like sort of the old classic Ninja Gaiden games.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's what they're going for, though. I mean, maybe there's some modernizations, but those old games were hard, and they're true. It looks like they're being true to the series and the difficulty here. I'm assuming there's no like difficulty options or anything. Like it is old school, and that what you see is what you get, sort of thing.
It's old school in the sense that once you beat the game, it unlocks a harder difficulty option for you. So yeah, I did not do that. But yeah, no, I mean, I think the default difficulty option is perfectly fine if you're accustomed to sort of like those sort of like twitchy action games that are, you know, like die and restart. I was really impressed with how well it translated to something like that, and still sort of retained the classic Ninja Gaiden feel.
So, did you play Blasphemous or Blasphemous 2? I know they're really well regarded, but I specifically didn't play either one of them because I heard about how difficult they were, and you know, I can deal with some difficult games, but 2D difficult combat games are not usually in my wheelhouse. So I'm curious if you played either of those and how this compares to that. I mean, I know, like I said, they're a strong studio, or is there maybe some other game out there that this compares really closely to?
No, I mean, the closest comparison that I could come up with, this kind of feels unfair, is the Messenger.
That's what came to mind for me too, yeah.
Where like the Messenger felt just sort of like a really modern take on Ninja Gaiden, and so this sort of just feels like, oh yeah, like what if we took some of the things that the Messenger did really well, but then wrap it in the Ninja Gaiden like lore and characters. And like, I mean, one thing I will say, I did not play Blasphemous 1 or 2, but one thing I know, the Game Kitchen, they're really known for is like their pixel art. They have a really unique pixel art style, and that shines through here, where it's like, I wouldn't say it's like a 2D 16-bit style. Like it's almost like a Game Boy Advance style sprites, where like there's like a 3D effect to them. So like in motion, everything just looks really cool. And like I said, I mean, like by the time like you're eventually figuring out these levels, everything is just happening like at 100 miles an hour, and just like you feel like so in control of everything. It plays great on the Steam Deck. You know, it and I mean, I didn't even get into the soundtrack. Like the soundtrack is just like, I mean, I would argue it's probably one of my favorite video game soundtracks, like since the original Hotline Miami.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, it is just like, yeah, start to finish, just bangers. So yeah, I mean, if you like these sort of like challenging, it's not, I mean, one thing I'll say is it's $24.99, I believe, and it's over in about like 4 or 5 hours is what it took me to beat. So it's not super long. So unless you're like planning on like 100%ing it, like you may just want to wait for like a sale. And then I think really like the only other sort of like quibble or complaint that I had was the boss battles. Some of them could get a little like random, like you could deal with like RNG, you know, screwing you over on top of like having to memorize. Like there were some randomization elements that would screw you over sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, other than that, I mean, start to finish, man, I had a blast playing it.
In regards to, you mentioned Ninja Gaiden 4 coming out later this year, and we also got the Ninja Gaiden Black remaster, I think it was, earlier this year.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was Ninja Gaiden 2 Black,
yes. So, I mean, do you think them releasing all of these things back to back is like a smart move? I mean, it sounds like this is a winner. We don't obviously know about Ninja Gaiden 4 yet, but looking at a more macro scale here, like, what do you think about all these Ninja Gaiden games suddenly coming up out of nowhere after such a long hiatus?
Yeah, it is weird, because like you would think the remaster would have come first to sort of like test the waters. But it just kind of, and like not to mention like there's a Shinobi 2D like sort of like spiritual successor, or like reimagining that's coming out in a couple of weeks as well. So it's like the rebirth of like difficult ninja games this year. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking through it as I was playing Ragebound, where I'm more excited for Ninja Gaiden 4 because of this, because I was like, oh yeah, like I would say the settings, the different set pieces, the different enemy types in Ragebound sort of reminded me of like Ninja Gaiden isn't strictly just like demons and you know, kind of like how the Messenger was. Like there is like sort of more modern elements to them. So I think seeing that like on a in a 3D version, and I mean, my first exposure to Ninja Gaiden was on the original Xbox with Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2. So, you know, I think, you know, I'm more excited to play 4, but I do think like, yeah, I imagine they probably wanted that remaster to come out last year, and it just so happened that, you know, like through happenstance that things got lined up this way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's who knows why whether this was intentional or just some kind of fluke that all these things lined up at once. But yeah, I think this definitely starts the buzz for Ninja Gaiden 4, which looks pretty good in its own right.
Yep, it's a this one is definitely going to be getting top 10 consideration for me as well. I am definitely going to want to play through Mafia as well for top 10 consideration, because that seems like a game that's right up my alley. But yeah, guys, that is going to do it for us in our show today. We're glad that you joined us. Thanks for listening to us ramble on for games for about an hour. If you guys haven't already, subscribe to us on your podcast service of choice. Leave a review if you're so inclined. Give us 5 stars. Wesley, you took a hit before the or during the break. Any poignant thoughts to send the people off with?
There is nothing stopping each and every one of you from breaking into publicly owned businesses and stealing stuff like real ninjas. That's what ninjas do. Go steal public property and private owned property.
I have to unfortunately remind you that we don't condone this. However, Wesley speaks for himself.
This is not financial advice.
That's going to do it for us tonight. Yeah, this is not financial or legal advice. Please don't sue us. Please don't sue me.
Come after me, dogs!
Please do follow us on social media. I did forget to mention that. Follow us on social media. Our handles are in the description. But I'm going to get out of here before Wesley says something else that'll get us in trouble. Y'all have a good one.